I'm going to talk about hormone imbalances, some of the causes, and how to best address them. Now, I put stress down as our first one just because I think it is probably our most prevalent hormone disruptor that we now deal with on a day to day basis just because of society and how our world is right now. But what many people don't know is just how much of an impact stress has on our overall body, of course, but also for our hormonal health. It can lead to an imbalance in our gut microbiome. Now, if you don't know, our gut microbiome, you want a good amount of good to bad bacteria ratios just because they do help you absorb the food that you're eating. It just overall has also a pretty good impact on your mental health from the gut brain axis. So there's a pretty big deal that it imbalances the gut microbiome. It overstimulates your nervous system just because you get that rush of cortisol as well as sometimes adrenaline as you are getting ramped up from whatever is causing you the stress, either acutely or specifically chronically. But the issue is also that your body doesn't really know if it is safe, if it is no longer running from the metaphorical tiger. So this could then lead to issues of you not being able to rest at night, not being able to fall asleep, just because you are always feeling that sense of being tired, but also kind of wired because your nervous system isn't able to settle back down. Over time, this can further the hormonal imbalance because cortisol, the stress hormone, can take some of the building blocks to things like progesterone, for instance, melatonin. It will divert those resources for your body to produce more cortisol because through the wisdom of our body, it will prioritize your survival over possibly reproducing. So all of those resources will be taken up to produce more cortisol, which is fine if we are indeed running from the metaphorical tiger, if we're running deadlines, if we are currently in a fight, if we're doing something that needs those reserves. But if we're having that situation chronically, that is a pretty big hormonal imbalance because we are not ovulating. Therefore, we can have a overproduction of unchecked estrogen. Now, I already mentioned how melatonin kind of get depleted because of cortisol, but so can magnesium, and magnesium is needed for a lot of different aspects of our body. And it's kind of hard to be able to reestablish those reserves of magnesium through food just because of how our current agriculture is. And that can lead to nutrient deficiencies, also nutrient deficiencies in general from hormonal imbalances. Another common culprit of hormonal imbalances is nutrient deficiencies from either not eating enough food, which I know can be a little weird to hear just because our society has really pushed the idea that calorie in, calorie out. To be able to lose weight, gain weight, you need to look at calories. But that is a really big oversimplification because how much I need to eat calorie wise, which is honestly just energy, will be very different from someone that works outside all day, that is a farmer. They're going to need a lot more energy, a lot more calories. So having a blanket term of what everyone should eat isn't really realistic. And that also doesn't touch on the fact that we need to think about what exactly we're eating. If I'm eating 100 calories of cheesecake, it's going to be very different than if I'm eating 100 calories of a chicken pesto sandwich. Those are two very nutritionally different meals, which is why we need to also specify that we need to be eating more food, but also specifically protein and healthy fats. And our society mentioning that we need to be eating less calories also doesn't talk about what we should be eating more of, which is healthy fats and protein. That is probably what our body needs the most, especially our hormones. It is what they're essentially made out of. Next one is not eating a wide variety of food. We want to have a wide variety of food for our gut microbiome to get that pre and probiotic, to get fiber, to get different foods that we can even have seasonally. Because what I want to eat during the winter, which is stews, soups, things that are hearty, things that are hearty, are going to be what I want and will be better for me during the winter than in the summer months when it is really hot outside. I don't want to be having chili, which I do have chili in the summer times, but that's sometimes. But you'll want to be having something that's a little bit more lighter, a little bit more refreshing, and that is kind of more intuitive to the seasons, which would then help you get a good gut microbiome because you're having those diversity of foods. And then lastly, when it comes to nutrient deficiencies, you're not going to be able to absorb the nutrients from the food you're eating. For instance, in this picture, it looks like a really good meal. It looks like there's maybe some tofu, some broccoli, some bell peppers. On the side, it looks like it has some chicken soup, some rice. This looks like a really tasty, yummy, and healthy meal. But if your gut microbiome is not the best, so if it is imbalanced, if there's nutrient deficiencies leading to the imbalance of gut microbiome, you're not able to absorb those nutrients from that food, which can then lead to an underproduction of those hormones. Another common hormone imbalance cause is gut imbalances, like we were talking about. That imbalance of good to bad bacteria that doesn't allow for nutrient absorption. There is also overburning the liver. Now, our liver is the one that is processing everything that we come into contact with, honestly. Everything that we eat, drink, anything that comes into contact with our skin is then processed and filtered through the liver. Now, what can happen when there is a gut imbalance and that there is almost like a backlog of things that your liver needs to process, and that also includes your hormones. Gut imbalances can also lead to kind of a hijacking of our cravings because we will start to crave what the quote unquote bad bacteria are craving, which is sugar, because that is what they feed off of. So we'll start to be craving more sweets, especially after dinner, or we'll just want to be getting a couple iced coffees or more drinks or anything that has that sugar intake because one, it also makes us feel good, but also because of the gut bacteria. Gut imbalances can also lead to an overstimulation of your immune system, and that is because our immune system is housed mostly along our digestive tract, which is honestly brilliant because how we are experiencing the outside world the most, besides our skin, is through what we eat. So our immune system is lining our digestive tract, which if we are having a gut imbalance, that can really overstimulate the immune system because it doesn't know if it is a friend or foe, if it is part of our body or if it is not. That's why we can lead to a lot of food sensitivities, not so much allergies, but foods that our body just isn't really sure of. And then lastly, it can also lead to increased feelings of anxiety or depression just because of, once again, that gut brain axis, where some of the serotonin is also produced in our digestive tract. And having that gut imbalance can also impact our overall mental health. Now, some of the contributing factors can be things that are a hormone disruptor or xenoestrogens that are in our environment. So that is going to be things that are in our skincare, our makeup, things that we come in contact with a lot, things that we inhale, fragrance, perfumes, things that we cook with. All of these have, like the name implies, xenoestrogens or hormones that are similar to our own innate hormones, but they don't act the same way. So instead, they just kind of step into that slot or that receptor and don't actually help us in the way that we should be getting the help from our own innate hormones. Another pretty big contributing factor is not getting enough sleep. Sleep is the time where our body is resting, recharging, and also just doing maintenance work you can think of. And without sleep, that can impact our hormonal health because melatonin isn't being produced enough, we aren't resting, we aren't being able to reset almost in a way from the day before. And of course, previous use of birth control, because birth control, in essence, in itself, is a hormone disruptor. That is how it functions. And sometimes when we get off of birth control, our hormones don't really know how to go back to how to function, basically, as well as causing nutrient deficiencies within itself, also causing gut imbalances, which, when you discontinue the birth control, can leave your body not being able to cycle the way it needs to be. So, how exactly do we support our hormones and manage our hormone imbalance? And the way I like to think about it is through a holistic lens, taking a lot of different viewpoints or a lot of different areas and focusing because our hormones are impacted by so many different factors. If you look at the very right hand side, there is a health bar, and you do want to be getting a good amount of all of these different areas to really best support your hormonal health. Now, starting from the top, there is body literacy, getting to know your body and your own unique body, because your body is going to be very different from my body. Using a fertility awareness based charting method to see if you are ovulating or not, how long your luteal phase is, how long your follicular phase is. All of these are really good diagnostic tools to see how long is it taking you to ovulate, how long is your luteal phase, because that will determine how much progesterone that you are producing to balance out the effects of estrogen. All of these are really important factors for your overall health of your cycle and also just you in general. The next pillar is rest, prioritizing sleep above all else. Now, I have, of course, as an herbalist, my favorite herbs for better promoting sleep. If you have trouble winding down at the end of the day, have trouble staying asleep, that is passion flower, lemon balm, skullcap. Now, for skullcap, you do want to minimize the amount of heat just because of the constituents in the plant. They don't really react the same when you do full boiling water. So that's why it has the little note for reducing heat. But all of these can be taken as teas right before bed just to kind of help you wind down at the end of the day. Next up is being informed, keeping up to date with what products that you're using on a daily basis to make sure that they don't have any harmful ingredients, chemicals, estrogens in them, our clothes, skincare, cleaning products, cooking products, anything that we really come into contact with, which sounds like a lot, but it over long term will really help your hormonal health because not one of these things in general, all of these hormonal imbalances, not one of these is going to cause the hormonal imbalance itself, but it is more of a combination of all of these different factors that can lead to a hormonal imbalance. So every little bit helps. And a good website to go to is the EWG database. There's Yuka app, there's Think Dirty that all really give you a good insight into what ingredients or what are in the products that you're using. Next up is resetting, finding what works best for you to kind of calm down and just reset at the end of the day. So either walking, hiking, drawing, meditating, spending time with people, pets, dancing, deep breathing, yoga, tea time, and then some of my favorite herbs to kind of wind down the nervous system is things like lemon balm, milky oat tops, dandelion root. All of these kind of help settle the nerves a little bit, and they're all generally safe herbs that we can be taking as tea. Now, of course, there is movement, finding what you enjoy doing and doing it often. And how you move will also impact from where you are in your cycle. For instance, new or more intense workouts can be done closer to your ovulatory phase where you have that energy. You can do lifting weights or Pilates, running, hiking, while the lighter movements can be saved for your bleed time or right before your period. Things like walking or stretching, that you're giving your body also that time to rest. And then finally, another main pillar is, of course, nutrition. So focusing on nutrient-rich, hearty meals, foods that make you feel good after you eat them, that are not too heavy, but that once again make you feel nice and fuzzy on the inside after you eat them. Now, how much we need to eat will, of course, vary day by day where you are in your cycle, what you did that day. If you are moving houses, you're probably going to be needing a lot more food than when you're just kind of being a potato all day. So overall, just don't overthink it. Now here is a pro tip is if you can't find what kind of foods to look into, look for more traditional meals that are around the world because there is a reason that our society and our species got to this point, and it is because they didn't overthink the foods that they need to be eating. They took cues from nature, they took cues from what is in their environment. So if you know your heritage or if you like a certain cuisine from a certain ethnicity, look into their own traditional foods, traditional meals, and that will give you a pretty good idea about how to eat based on seasons and also how to make a good, healthy, balanced meal. So some ideas can be soups, stews, slow cooked meats are really good, fresh veggies, pro and prebiotic rich foods, more protein, of course, and some bone broth. Now, if you're feeling like you want some extra support or you don't really know where to start, you can either schedule a free meet and greet with me where we can sit down and talk about what's going on and we can just kind of have that conversation. Or if you want to learn more about what I have to offer on different programs, then you can go ahead and click the link below. Both of these links will be linked below, where you can check the full description of the program that I'm currently running.